what's the fine line between keeping experimenting and keeping doing things just to sort of stay busy to avoid what's actually your purpose?
Paralysis by analysis, right? And so I think a lot of time it's, the fact that we always love to do the $10 an hour jobs instead of the $1,000 an hour jobs because they're easy and they're distracting and they make us feel like we're doing something, we're spinning again. So what's your purpose? I don't think you're really supposed to figure out what your purpose is right away. I think all of us fixate on the fact of what's our why, what's our purpose and why I'm doing this. Um, don't find out because like if you're constantly growing and searching, then you're going to explore. And I think that's the most important part. And that's why.
Welcome, Third Rock listeners, to the Branding Laboratory. I'm your host, Deevo, Chief Experience Officer for the Brand Storyteller and the Fusion Creative Brands. And each week, I have the privilege of speaking with extraordinary leaders and entrepreneurs who are reshaping the way industries work. These conversations go way beyond the surface to explore the core philosophies, the lessons, and the challenges that define the brands that we admire today. And one of the greatest rewards of this podcast is the opportunity to share the insights of some of the brightest minds in business, people who are passionate about pushing boundaries and redefining what's possible. And as I always say, the stories we tell are the brands we build. And this show is a testament to the power of that concept. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Branding Laboratory. I'm your host, Deevo, the podcast where we decode the DNA of bold, audacious brands and the people, the humans behind them, the individuals that are leading them. I'm your host, and I am a brand strategist. I am a creative storyteller and an identity architect wrapped up in one. And every single week, I'm going to sit down with founders and creatives and big thinkers to explore the messy, the beautiful, and the intersections of identity and leadership and legacy and how each of my guests are showing up in the world. Today's guest is someone who knows a little bit about that and exactly how to stand out and his story and own the room. His name is Bryce North. He is a serial entrepreneur, a master of attention and storytelling, and the founder of Pitch Pro, which is really helping companies build and owning the media and their voice and their vision and getting that out to a larger audience. And he's built a pretty cool reputation. If you Google him, you'll see what I mean. Not just for what he does, but how he goes about it. And so we're going to break that down a little bit, get to know him, and sort of dig into how he leads, what he believes, and what it really means to fully show up as the brand. Welcome to the show, Bryce. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Doing great. Thanks for having me here.
All right, man. Well, let's jump into the show. I'm excited that you're here. You're kind of in a similar space as me, but it sounds like more on the PR side. Is that kind of a safe space? Could you just tell me a little bit about what you do specifically and who specifically you do it for?
Yeah, I own a PR agency called Don't Be a Little Pitch with the P's. We are like on the edgier, the cheekier side of things. I work with like really cool CEOs and founders to, fashion brands, maybe not branching a lot to SaaS, but I build trust online. That's what I do. I tell stories in a really cool way that gets people noticed. The way I like to put it is that PR is meant for trust gen and not lead gen, and everyone thinks getting covered is going to get them everywhere. It's a byproduct, but I don't get you to the party, but I make sure when you're there, people are going to listen to you because they respect you and they're going to work with you because you've done something damn cool.
You got your elevator pitch down. I love that. I'm assuming the name of your company, Don't Be a Pitch, sort of kind of, for me, when I first hear that, I'm sort of sure that the type of person that you work with already sort of knows what they're going to get their hands on when they step in the ring with you. Because
A little bit, yeah.
yeah. Was that intentionally done that way?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm surprised actually the type of people that come in here are people that I really didn't think would be coming in approaching us. Like, don't be a little pitch. I mean, it's punny, right? It's fun at the same time, but I thought I'd get the really edgy people that, kind of want to, push back and who are really good at polarizing. No, it's people who understand or maybe a little more plain in the center that actually want to polarize or find themselves they need to kind of do a creative twist. I get billion-dollar enterprises that Stripe approach us, being like, we need something fresh and new. I've had people who just a little more insecure, need to get themselves out there. Surprisingly enough, we get a lot of female leaders coming and saying like, we need some help. And it's pretty incredible that way. And the people that we piss off are just men. I've never had a female angry at the name. It's always guys if saying this is disrespectful, and the female saying this is the greatest name I've ever heard. I want it. And so you got to polarize.
I always find it funny that people get pissed off or offended by something that has nothing to do with them, but it's something else that they have to devote a whole bunch of energy to. It's like, dude, how does this affect you? If you don't want to associate with me, then don't associate with me. Like, what are you offended about?
Oh, it's funny, man, when people deliberately come out and like start attacking, and I love those moments because like, I mean, you're doing something right. If you have lovers, you have haters. And so, just, you count the haters because that means I just one step closer to like, winning something pretty big.
I'm always fascinated by people's origin stories. And I look at my own and sort of like it's been this squiggly trajectory from all over the place, from corporate worlds to serial entrepreneur to photography to videography. Like I've literally done a bazillion different things. And I like doing all of them. That's why I sort of like, you know what? I'm going to try something I like. Let's go do it. Your story is sort of interesting. You have a cool trajectory. I'm curious where it all began in terms of did you always know you were going to be an entrepreneur? Did you always know that you had this creative side to you? Did you always know you were in this like this servant space, if you will? Like, tell me a little bit about who you were as a kid and kind of growing up to where you are now.
Yeah, really good question. I think like nothing's ever linear, right? And not, like my whole motto is just like opening doors. I think the biggest mistake a lot of people have when they want to take, the career of entrepreneurship is they just too scared or don't know where to start. You never know where to start or where to finish or what to do. So the idea is just open doors, try something because it leads to path. I never wanted to be in PR, but here I am. I'm damn good at it. I will admit that. But everything that kind of I'm doing right now has led me to this moment, which is giving me a springboard to get the things I want to do. This is not where I'm stuck. And so my career path has always been launching ideas, trying new things, and always having a lot of ideas on things I want to start from a childhood, just inventing here, left and right, and hustling around my neighborhood. So I think I kind of got bored with the norm and what everyone else was doing, and I always had a little bit of vendetta against that. And so when I heard other people are doing this or going this trajectory, going to school for this or getting jobs, I was like, ah, this sounds too boring. That's rebel a little bit. And so from there, I've launched different businesses, and I always hopped to different schools and didn't follow the crowds, kept friends, but did something different or challenged myself to something new every single year. So here I am, coming from ad tech to interior design, moving into like IoT hardware, now owning an agency, circling back to software soon. This is just, one continuous journey and loop of kind of finding, what I like to do along the way while acquiring skills.
Yeah, that squiggly line. You said something interesting. I was actually having this conversation last night. I was watching um, Dark Matter. It's a show on Apple TV, I think it's called Dark Matter. Have you heard of this show?
I haven't heard it now.
It's an interesting concept. I wouldn't say it's the best made TV, but the concept centers around sort of quantum physics and interdimensional time travel and things of that nature, but in like a modern setting. Anyway, there's a sort of a space where this guy invented this box, and within the box, he can travel to an infinite number of different worlds where he also coexists infinitely. Does that make sense? And so,
Mhm.
based upon the idea of quantum physics, the visual they create for this is like sort of like a box that you get in, but the box has infinite hallways going in infinite directions, and along the hallways are different doors. You can open up the door, and when every time you open the door, you step into a different simultaneous dimension of yourself. And so, anyway,
Cool.
where I'm going with this is. You said you always like to open doors and try something, and I immediately thought about that because every time you open up a door, right? And this is the case for that show. Thank you for muting, by the way. Somebody had a cold on the on a podcast the other day, and I was like, "Bro, use the mute button, man. Come on now." He was like hacking up along the whole effing show. I was like, "Dude."
Uh,
Anyway, so thank you. I really appreciate that.
I've
I
done
always
this
do
enough.
that. I
Appreciate
always
it.
do that as well. Anyway, sorry, I'm going somewhere with my rant here. So every time you open a door in this concept of the movie or the show Dark Matter, it opens up a cluster of infinite possibilities behind each door. Does that make sense? And so, like,
Absolutely.
you just said something that really resonated with me. You said you always just want to try something, open doors, and just kind of see where it goes. It's crazy. People are so afraid to try something new outside their comfort zone, right? And I always say, man, if you just open that door and just step into it, there are so many things you have no idea what you could potentially be exposed to right now just from taking that one first step, that one decision, that one choice to just step outside and do something. And you just don't know what you don't know. And people are just like, yeah, but and so I did that for like 15 years. I worked in corporate. And I didn't realize until after the fact that I was doing it out of comfort zone and fear. The big juicy check, the fact that I had a job every 2 weeks, there was a huge check put in my bank account. Every quarter I got this massive bonus check, and I was like, yeah, I'm the man. But dude, I was living like this soulless, vapid existence in that space. And I realized the reason I was staying there is because of that comfort zone. I wasn't opening the doors to all the other possibilities. So sorry, that was long. Why in your space do you think what makes you different from a lot of other people And mostly entrepreneurs possess this skill, this attribute, this self-awareness to step into a space like that and zero fucks given about it.
Because I'm calloused. That's what I say, is that like I've been burnt before, I've hit rock bottom. And I've been through like the shit before to making me understand that what I not need to do again, but what I also need to do. Both at the same time, it's just not as scary anymore. Like you've opened a brand new door to like this untapped whatever environment you're in or whatever industry you're going to be tackling. And you don't know what's going on, but at least you understand how to navigate a little bit more or a little more open to the fact that this is going to really fail
Yeah.
or I'm going to discover something new here. And that's the biggest thing for me is just my experience of doing this is literally from me just diving headfirst and trying to figure it out and drowning a little bit and coming back up. It's not scary anymore. I think our biggest fear of failure is like a perception of what other people think about us.
Mm.
That's just what it is. And so like when you ask yourself, and you can ask yourself this, like, what would you do if you're not scared? What would you do if you weren't afraid? And if we take a look at that, a lot of time is okay, well, it boils down to if no one else was around, I would do this. And you hear that all the time. And so I think I got pretty good at just ignoring the bullshit and what people have to say, start polarizing and realizing nobody actually even cares.
Mm.
And from there, you can be pretty fearless.
You don't typically find younger people having this amount of self-awareness in this space. Was there something specific about your upbringing, whether it was your parents or the fact that you're traveling or this rebellious nature? What inspired you, I guess, to have this model of leadership and self-awareness that you have in a relatively short amount of time on this planet?
Yeah, you know what? Like when you kind of hit rock bottom and you're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and by the age of 30, and you're like, okay, well, everyone else is so much further than me. I spent all my years trying to build these businesses. I've got nowhere. That kind of fuels you to kind of push forward and realize I can collapse right now, or what the fuck? Why not just keep going and trying to figure it out? And like I think that's a lot of the skills that a lot of people get pushed back on, and take a long time or the years spinning to figure it out. Because like as entrepreneurs, we have this issue. This issue is that, when we're progressing, we're moving forward. When we're failing, we're moving backwards. And that's movement. And we feel good in movement. But when we're stagnant, man, that is scary as hell. And
Mm.
stagnation is just procrastination. And procrastination is, well, I'm going to learn more. I'm going to get a new course. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to try something different. So we feel like we're moving. We feel like we're progressing. We learn something, we try it, it feels good. We're talking to new people, we're in movement. We're building it, we're in development. We're actually putting it into practice, it feels good, like we're actually going forward. And then we just spin again because that fails, nothing happens, and here we are. We're not making movements, we're not putting in effort, we're not opening up doors. And so when you kind of bounce out of that cycle and realize like the only way forward is like to really keep experimenting and being calculated about that, you can have a lot of self-awareness. And so this came from me in a small city where there's no venture capital, there is no deal flow. It's no one else thinks like you, and everyone else is kind of just ceilings out. It's hard to break out of that. So I had to make noise. I had to actually experiment, listen, and talk to other people who were successful and grow my network outside of that. That's how I stopped spinning, is actually opening doors because we keep talking about this, and also reaching out and making a name for myself outside a small city in Canada to have a name that was actually well known in the US.
You said keep experimenting. You just have to keep experimenting. And I don't disagree necessarily. But what's the fine line between keeping experimenting and keeping doing things just to sort of stay busy to avoid what's actually your purpose?
Paralysis by analysis, right? And so I think a lot of time it's, the fact that we always love to do the $10 an hour jobs instead of the $1,000 an hour jobs because they're easy and they're distracting and they make us feel like we're doing something, we're spinning again. So what's your purpose? I don't think you're really supposed to figure out what your purpose is right away. I think all of us fixate in the fact of what's our why, what's our purpose and why I'm doing this. Um, don't find out, because like if you're constantly growing and searching, then you're going to explore. And I think that's the most important part. And that's why I'm traveling. I love to collect stories. I love to listen to other people and listen to different cultures. And so if I had my purpose right now, exactly knowing what I would doing, I wouldn't be here. And I wouldn't like that. And so I think if you're a little more open to the fact of I have no clue where I'm going, but I'm comfortable with that, I think you'd be pretty surprised how having zero expectations leads to a lot of good success.
I love that you said that. I've often said, and I have this little magic wand that I give all my clients, sort of like, if you had a magic wand, what would you create right now, right? Whether it's your business, your life, your personal development, etc. I've always said that if I had a magic wand and I ruled the world, that everyone on the planet would be required to live for 1 year, no less than 1 year, in a non-native speaking country where they had to be fully immersed. They had to work, they had to live, they had to communicate, they had to talk, they had to learn the language, etc. And it would literally change the dynamic of every human on the planet. because of just that the perceptions that happen, the experiences that happen, the comfort zone that happens, like all there's so many variables when you put yourself into a strange country. And it's like, and I'm not talking like going to some American made all inclusive destination in like Cancun. I'm talking about, man, you got to go live in the culture somewhere and hang with the people that are native to the land, and not and I just think it the first time I traveled, I was blown away at all the things that I had been told as an American growing up were just a fucking lie. And everything else out there, there's so much out there. It's like, dude, you have no idea. I have a friend here who
You have
refuses.
no
You
idea.
have no idea. I literally have a friend here who refuses to leave America. And he's like, why would I leave? I have everything I need. Okay, you may, but have you tried something else? Like the other countries could offer you such a unique perspective. So anyway, quick question on travel. What does travel give to you in terms of, because it sounds like you've been doing it a while. What do you think if you had to sort of distill that down to one central message? What does travel do for you?
It gives me patience. It really does. I'm the most impatient person in the world. Actually, like there's a lot of studies out there saying that most successful entrepreneurs, not claiming I'm super successful by the statement, but I have a really impatient and or dyslexic. We can go into a little bit later on, but those are like one of the two fun key points. What does travel give to me? It's patience on that. So I sold everything that I owned in order to like move out of the small city, and it's like it's not super tiny. It's Winnipeg in Canada, but we don't have to go into my perceptions of that. But I sold everything to move to Toronto, to make my way over to New York, and I had 2 months before I actually moved. Kept a few things, and I just like, you know what? I haven't traveled so much, but let's go to Colombia. I'm gonna start there, and then work my way in Latin America and see where that takes me. I fell in love with that country.
Mm,
I fell in love with the people that I stayed for about 3 years there. And so learning there when I'm in a new environment, I have no clue what's going on, zero expectations. These are the nicest, most friendliest, most passionate people in the world. And so when you're walking down the street, we love our space in North America. We know people touching us, bumping into that's is the problem. This is a culture that touches, that needs to be around people. So you're going to get bumped and people are going to walk close to you. And people are going to be in your personal space, whether you're sitting down while you're talking and communicating, whether you're just walking.
mm,
And so me learning this and realizing I have no clue your guys' culture about, and I have no reason to get angry, to have anxiety, to get mad. I just got to go with the flow.
mm,
I think the unknown right there put my expectations down to zero, to the
mm,
point where I had the greatest time, and I just opened myself up to learning this culture who just would sing and dance when they had absolutely nothing.
mm,
And like there's a bougie side to that city, absolutely in that country, and then there's a really big poverty side to it. But both sides, whether you're super rich or super poor, are just happy.
mm.
They don't, there's a difference between working to live and living to work, and they really exemplify that over there. So travel's taught me not to be a piece of shit, to be honest with you, not to judge a lot of other people, and more importantly, to kind of sit back and just realizing that, things are not going to blow up, and timing is never an issue for any company. Unless like the AI rush right now and you were Uber and Airbnb back in the day, timing is never an issue. Don't have to rush to raise that money to grow. Just kind of slow down and kind of calculate and breathe.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I have a couple of things it's taught me, if I might share for a second. Humility, just because of the different perspectives and the different things, and you don't realize how many things you actually have when you go to another country, especially you said Colombia. I spent a lot of time in Mexico, and I'm just blown away at how mindful and happy those people are, even though they literally have nothing most of the time.
Hmm.
But nothing to them is not the same thing as nothing to me, right? So like they don't see it that way, which is the whole point of why their perspective is so good. But humility, gratitude for me, and honestly, like the whole idea of the curiosity, the sense of adventure, like just going out and doing something that puts me outside of my comfort zone. I want to talk a little bit about storytelling because that's something that's really near and dear to both of our hearts. Why storytelling and why media? What about that particular modality of business and promotion, et cetera, really attracted you in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it's also those two laws I said before, is that the only way to actually connect with people is to tell a story.
Mhm.
And I mean, we have to, let's put it this way, when we idolize our heroes or the people, that we really inspire to kind of be or follow, and we put them on a pedestal. And a lot of times we can connect with them, and they're always going to seem like a hero. And so, when we see some famous people in the street, we're going to have this anxiety rush, this feeling that we're inadequate. We see it on social media, we see it everywhere else. Now, when you're storytelling, whether you are a little more rich or famous, or above these clients or customers that you want to help to get up to your level, the only way to actually humanize and bring yourself down is to storytell.
Mm,
And we can connect with people in many different ways. And I think it's extremely important to humanize ourselves in that way, where you can actually tell something authentic. Because with all the crap, with all the clutter, with all the lies and scams out there these days, the only thing that holds true is authenticity. And the best way to show that is actually through storytelling. And so that's how I think you need to connect with people. If you really want to win at life, want to win at sales, want to win with everything else, be vulnerable. I don't care if you're an Alex Hormozi fan or not, but he does one thing really well is that his business took off when he actually started talking more about his failures. Same with mine. I spoke a lot. I grew my company. I had a lot of successes, mostly when I talked about the ways that I screwed up and how I completely fucked up, and not about where I want. Because people, they don't want to hear that. They want to know that what they're doing is okay. And as entrepreneurs, unfortunately, we don't have a way to measure success, and so we do that in raises, by hiring, by acquisitions. And a lot of people that aren't ready for that yet need to be doing that by actually sharing stories. And I think like it's more powerful than ever to kind of go down that pathway.
Can we break that down for a second? Because you said people don't want to hear that. And I sort of see that a little bit differently. I think there's two camps of people. There are people who are living vicariously through everyone else's life because they're just sort of, they hate their own. I'm sorry if that sounds a little bit tragic. And then there's other people who sort of see that space and are attracted to vulnerability because it makes them feel more human and emotionally bonded and connected with that person because they see a portion of them and the others. But there's another camp of people who don't necessarily see it that way. These are the people that sit and watch reality TV all day long, people who have like literally worship Hollywood stars. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that per se. I'm just wondering, is there a different way that different types of people view the world? And because of that perspective, that drives their actions, right? It's because I can tell you right now, you and I would have a bazillion things in common. We share most of the same insights you've said so far. I'm like, dude, I totally see the world that way. But I can have the same conversation with somebody else, and I actually do all the time. And it's a true story. One of my favorite places to have conversations, and don't laugh at me, is the fucking sauna at the gym. Dude, I don't know what it is.
I'm with you on this.
I have literally turned my sauna into like a philosopher's stone, and people be like, "Oh, here he comes." And I literally ask, like, I just love people's point of views, and so I have made some really amazing friends from the sauna over the last few years since I started going. But one of the things I notice is that people have completely different perspectives of the world, politically, geopolitically, socially, economically, everything. And I asked this question the other day. There were 6 people sitting in the sauna, and I just asked a simple question about why they were married, because they were all talking about their wives, and most of them were grumbling about their wives. And so I said, I would like to hear you tell me right now what you love about marriage and what do you hate about marriage. Like, what's the benefit of you being married? Because all I ever hear you do is complain. And only 2 people from that group could physically answer that question. Everyone else was just like, why are you asking me this? And I'm like, dude, because that's the whole point. We're here telling stories. Like, we're getting to know, we're getting to connect. Like, storytelling is literally the centerpiece of how humans connected, right? But my question, sorry, that was a bit of a ramble. Why are people so diametrically different on their perspective? I grew up in a family of 11. I have 11 brothers and sisters. There is not you. There is a direct split right down the middle in my family, even though we were raised by the same parents, roughly the same upbringing. 5 of us will lean this direction on almost every topic, and the other half will lean a completely different direction. And I've never understood it. Why can people be so diametrically opposed to so many different similar contextual things?
Great question. I've actually looked into this, and honestly, like sometimes can be due to trauma. A lot of people say that it comes down to like, did you have a good, stable friend group or family? Were you supported? Did everything seem okay? Or are you on the more I need to prove myself side?
Mm.
And there's a lot of stories out of that. And it comes down to having a really successful family and everyone else is entrepreneurial and doing really well. You got to prove yourself to them, or you not fitting in and having this innate feeling inside yourself where you just constantly have to outdo everything you do in order to feel accepted. There's that theory, the side of it, which I think a lot of people fall through. And then I don't know, the other side of it just falls into a type of Alderian type approach where or this is my task. I don't care about anything else other than what I'm doing. And I just think that what matters more in a non-egotistical way is my happiness. And like if you can break off into that and be more flexibility and free, then I think like that's super powerful. And those people are rare, but like that's my view on both sides of it.
What did you say? It's an Alderian approach? I didn't hear that word.
Yeah, there's a Freudian approach and a Haldarian approach.
Got it. So I thought you said that.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, we're going deep on this show today. So before we jump into a little bit more about you, just sort of recap, what specifically do you do? If I was your client and I came to you and I was like, man, I'm just looking for more exposure. I'm looking for more ways to get my message out to people. what do you, if I'm your ideal client, and I don't know if I am or I amn't, but what would you do for me as my support team, my PR team?
Yeah, I'd first tell you that mostly all PR is a scam, and to actually shape it in a way that actually makes sense for you, because there's a lot of press dealers out there, people saying I can get you featured here and there, and it's going to blow up your business and make you a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, we've seen it, but majority of the time that's not how it works. And so how I work with people, I build frameworks. What that means for me is stacking power, influence, and understanding what your authority is online, and how do we move you up through that. We have people coming to us and saying, I want Forbes and TechCrunch, get us on big TV shows like Oprah. Sure. Right. What's your experience with that? Where do you fit in line with everyone else who's been there? Because here's a secret about the media that no one really tells you. They don't care about what's interesting. They care what drives clicks.
Mm.
And so are people going to click on you if you're featured in mainstream media, if they never heard about you? Probably not. So what we have to do is build up this foundation of understanding what's your pathway, what's your trajectory, where's this going to get you, and stack along the way, so that when we actually meet and get to this North Star, this framework at top of this pyramid, that's organic attention. That's TV shows asking you to come on, stages paying you to speak, podcasts asking you to come on and talk about your story, and all it's featuring you. That's organic. Opportunity happens, and I pitch opportunity. That could be investment, that could be better teams and employees, that could be partnerships, sales, traffic, whatever that is. More exposure comes with actually properly stacking and getting your story out there and syndicating on different storylines.
Mm.
This doesn't take years. This doesn't take weeks. It's going to take months. We've seen success from 4 months all the way up to 13 months, max. Sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less. And so what I do with a lot of people is understanding, okay, where are you at in your business and what foundations do we need to actually create? As I said something interesting before, is that majority of our success with our clients comes from sharing their customers' stories, their transformations or transcendence, if you want to call it. We share that in the media. We make them look like an awesome sidekick. But before we even get there, we have to build this foundation that makes them trustworthy, because if people see stories of others, they're just going to Google the founders, the companies, to see if they're legitimate.
Yeah.
If you don't got anything there, you lose them. So from there, we just stack along the way. We build frameworks to get you in business directories, awards. We're getting you out there in syndications on Google and Apple News. There's more to public relations and PR than features. And people, I think, have this misconception, skewed view of it because of these press dealers, these scammers out there. And so, like I said before, I build opportunity. And that, again, it means a lot of different things for different people, but I built through proper frameworks, and I do trust generation online. If they're going to Google you, if they're talking to you, they're going to want to work with you because they've either heard about you, or when they actually do find you, they're going to be damn impressed.
I love that answer. It's you don't do straw houses.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
I kind of have a similar insight on that, and I'm looking to one of the things I really enjoy doing is I love being on a stage and talking, and I don't have a lot of experience at, but when I have done it, I've really enjoyed it, and I found it to be very impactful, and I found that I have a pretty good delivery. I sort of show up on stage as I do podcasting, which is kind of bad because sometimes I go down rabbit holes. Anyhow, I digress. I've been meeting with certain companies, and I guess the thing that I feel the most disenfranchised about is that everyone says something completely different than the next person, and their price packages are all over the place, and then their deliverables are completely different than anyone else. And so I'm just curious, if I may ask, what are your insights on that side of the business, and somebody repping you and managing you in your keynote speaking trajectory, the work that you're trying to do? What's your space on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, everyone wants to hire agencies because they think that they have the connections. Don't get me wrong, we got connections, but that's not the secret to getting you covered. Yeah, I got friends in the media. That doesn't mean they're going to cover your business. They got their own end to cover. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people charge more with bigger agencies, and people saying, I know people, I'm going to get you covered. That's only going to go so far. We do so well by starting from ground zero. Like, we go into people's businesses as part of their team and build relationships with the media so they own them. And same thing with, like, speaking and so forth, that you need to have these connections. A, you get covered more, and B, they should cover you over and over and over again by being a leading source.
Mhm.
And I can go deep into how we make you a source, a trusted person in some of the most top tier outlets by feeding them consistent information week after week, so they are your best friend. But let's focus more on, like, what you're saying here is, like, these other agencies are either having very expensive capital or paying for these reporters on their payroll or people that have the connections only to just get a no, to kind of pay for that. And so labor is expensive, absolutely. Ways are actually pretty antiquated up. And then how actually a lot of agencies are getting people into media, they're paying off reporters. They're paying thousands of dollars. That's baked into a lot of retainers, a lot of other fees and
Hmm.
services. I do 100% earned media. I don't pay off reporters. I don't need to pay off reporters. I tell good stories, and like anyone can tell good stories. So you can find a way to find them, really study them, customize your pitch to them, and offer them a really great pitch. And I want to get this in a second, but a great pitch that actually entices them, you're going to have a whole lot of success and opportunity with that.
Hmm.
And it's not as hard as you think it is. It's just consistency. Because the best pitches offer there, like that we send, offer no value at all. And that just boggles people's mind when I say that. I do not pitch products. I do not pitch services. I do not pitch benefits. I pitch what ifs. And I think that's such a magical place to be. It's such as the magic wand. We want people to have this creative inspiration on their own, especially when it comes down to sales or investors or even the media. They're all the same to me. You don't tell them what is going to happen for them because we get that in our inboxes all the time.
Mm.
Hey, I increase leads for you here, or I can grow your business
My
by
God.
X percentage. In the end, like we can sniff the bullshit. And so I don't come in and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. I just say that, hey, imagine a world, or imagine what could happen if all these things lie into place.
Mm.
And like all my business started and kind of still is a little bit right now is through cold email. You're asking who answers cold email? People answer my cold email, and I'm proud that people say this is the best cold email I've ever got in my life.
Mm.
But they are 5 minutes to read. Their page is long. They take them through a story, and they don't offer any sort of impact other than piquing their curiosity. And so when you talk to people, no matter what you're doing in sales and everything else, your goal is not to sell them on the spot. Your goal is to make them inquire, curious, to learn more about you. And they're going to do that on their own. They're going to go to AI tools, GPT and Perplexity, and search you. They're going to Google you online. If they have no way to follow a story and come up with their own example, their own idea of who you are, what you can do, you lost them right then and there. And so the
Interesting.
new way to sales is through letting people actually finish and complete their own journey.
Interesting. And that's what you mean by you were talking about these organic frameworks that you're establishing.
When
Interesting.
you Google some of the people we work with, you go down the rabbit hole, whatever you're inquiring, and you're gonna find out exactly, do you have that same pain point and what have they done before? And it leads like there's a really nice pathway of understanding their story, what they've done for themselves, other clients, and then you're gonna come up with this idea, hey, they can help me with that. I'm not shoving down your throat, this is what's gonna happen. You're realizing that yourself. And as a man probably in sales, you probably know when someone makes up their mind about how a solution is gonna come through, it's an easy sell from there. But it should be because it's authentic, it's true, and the proof is there and they're not lies.
When you allow people to sort of, it's like a Mad Lib, you, to sort of fill in the blank of what they're looking for, do you think that they're cognitively biased? If you give them a tease, are people cognitively biased to sort of fill in that space with their own influencing characteristic of what it is you're talking about?
Yes and no. Sometimes, I mean, you can guide a little bit more. You can be a little more direct in what you're kind of, aiming for here, or you can leave it super open. Depends on what you want, how you want to guide that conversation.
Interesting.
I use a lot of humor and a lot of dry sarcasm in a lot of my emails. So I disarm people right away because it's not salesy. It's just, I make them laugh. They feel more relaxed. I make fun of myself in the emails. Okay, we're calm, we're cool. And there's no high pressure. And then you open up the creativity side and curiosity side.
Mhm.
So when people come on calls with me, they're always like, okay, I'm curious. You got me here. What is it? And they already have in the back of their mind, maybe they want sales, maybe they want an engagement or a traffic boost, or maybe they understand PR. And it's my job to design them further, explain how it works, educate them, show them examples, and actually make them excited. And that's the one the hard part about my job is because I do make them excited about a new way of doing PR, which isn't a quick sell. It's like, holy shit, I've never thought about this way before, and it makes sense. Now I got to find a way to actually incorporate this into my business because we need this, we want this, I want this to work.
Mm.
And so for us, that's, I guess, the bad side about that is that you're offering a new way of doing things this way and having to educate people. They're not quick closes, they're long calls.
Mm.
But you also have a lot of control over where that story is going and more perception of what they want to get out of this. Because I'll tell you right now, when someone comes in without expectations, they're more open to answering questions, and they're also more open to receiving ideas, and not being so blocked off.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that who we are as individuals, who our personality is, and how we show up in the world sort of kind of bleeds into how we run our business. So I'd just like to get to know you a little bit more in that space, if you don't mind. In terms of who you are as an individual, and I'm talking non-business side, something completely unrelated to business, what is something you completely obsess over?
I am a person who just obsesses over little improvements, not big improvements. And so I like to do something for 6 months all the time and try it out. Something absolutely new that maybe scares me or is a little different. And I try to do this every 6 months. If I find something a level, I'll continue with it. But I obsess over finding new things that at least give me something new to talk about, something new to explore. Also a way to meet new people.
What are you doing
And
right
so
now?
example for
What
that.
is that 6 months gonna?
Bachata dancing. I just learned Spanish. So I just did that already. I'm pretty fluent in that. Now bachata dancing, I'm kind of getting into.
What? Tell me what that
Um,
is. Tell me what is
like
that?
it's a, like salsa dancing, but bachata, it's like a Latin type of dance.
Okay.
And so yeah, so I'm dancing now, if anything else. Which is like really cool, the people you meet, but also it's a different form of communication
Mm.
and different form of confidence. And I've learned so much from there how to be a lot more confident, present myself when I'm talking to people and more animated from that. And before it was like learning to sing or learning for play instruments. Like I paint now, and I went down this rabbit hole of trying to be artistic, and because I could never draw for the life of me. So I obsess over these little mini projects, these little mini improvements of myself. Not like everyone else is like the iced acid in the morning and all that bullshit. I'm not into that. I'm into mini experiments that last like 6 months in order to understand, do I like this and this will improve me? And then I don't share it with the world
Yeah.
like everyone else. And that's a hard thing to do because we're looking for external validation to validate what we're doing.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing to do because not only what you just said, but again, we do live in this space where we are our brand, we are the personal brand, and if we're trying to sell something, we do sort of have to kind of show up and let people know what we think, how we show up, what we believe, all those sorts of things. But there is the fine line between braggadocio and just sharing information with people, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, there is. I mean, that's LinkedIn versus everything else, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny how that platform's gone, but like we talked about this before, bragging works, talking about the great things you did works. And I think it works with the people that, realize maybe they're never going to get there or want to support. But those other people that I think are truly entrepreneurial, just they get jealous, and that's a great thing because that
Yeah.
makes them a little envy and envy to try.
I've always believed that social media is a powerful vessel. I know I see the pernicious qualities of it. I have two daughters, who I've pretty much limited in how they show up on social media and what access they have. I've been very censorship based, which I hate to say my entire life. But I've always wanted them to sort of like lean into a different direction rather than just sitting on their phones all day long. But at the same time, never before have we lived in an environment, at least from that I know of, at least in this version of humans, where we've had an opportunity to speak to 7, 8 billion people on the planet and share our little slice of the world and build a community around. And so I'm curious, what's your take on social media and how you show up and the value of it, the pernicious aspects of it? What's your whole take on social media?
Yeah, I think there's good and bad to it, and I think depends how you own your own platform. I don't do it a lot. I still do it because presence is king. You need to have some of the presence to show that you're alive.
Mm.
But I've never been one to actually master social media. We've got our own platforms. Mine's email and communications and stories and online and searches. Other people do that really well, but I think the idea is not to get lost in it and understand, how to use it as a tool. Because the one thing I don't like about social, and also same thing with PR, is that we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people,
Mm.
and it creates this inadequacy because we always assume, I wish I had more of this, I wish I had more of that, and wishing means we don't have.
Yeah.
And we get into this like this momentum of just self-doubt
Yeah.
and this disbelief, and here we are, quitting what we're doing and listening to other people and ending in a way that kind of just ruins our whole career or our ambitions and our lifestyle. So, I like to say to people at the time is, how much did it cost? How much did they pay you to give up on your dreams? And I think a lot of people go towards a safety net because of what we see out there and compare ourselves to other people. So take it with a grain of salt. I think what I love to do is I ignore it. I don't really consume it, but I'll post on there and do what I need to do because when I am DMing, when I'm reaching out to people, at least it looks like, I know my audience and I know what I'm talking about. And it's all about trust and engagement at that.
Hmm. I love your answer. Comparisonitis is the primary reason why I've been censorship based
Either way.
with my children. It's sort of like I know it is what it is. I know that it's mass marketed. I know that it's controlled and manipulated. I know there's psychology behind it. I know how they operate. The algorithm is literally was built by like Mossad agents or CIA agents technology in terms of how do you attract people and how do you market to people and how do you grab eyeballs. And so like for those reasons why I've always sort of viewed it in a again, I have a love hate relationship with it, but I really appreciate what you just said. In terms of going back to that obsessive aspect, the 6 months and trying something, How does that bleed into you? What's the value of that when that bleeds into you, how you run and lead your business?
Yeah, really good question. I think experimentation is really important. I think a lot of us have one big issue. It's just sales all the time. And we're really bad at selling. And so when I launch, like even when I launch brand new ideas, I'll build a website quickly. I'll put the products in there. I'll run ads to them and let people buy. And then if they buy, I'll just refund them and say, sorry, manufacturing problem or whatever. Here's a discount for the future. But the idea is that we love building for distraction. And we love building more than we actually love talking to people, talking to customers and selling. And
Mm,
so these mini spurts of you mean not just thinking about wanting to do a class or not thinking about like what's right for me and just doing it and understanding that like the only thing that's gonna really be the worst part about this is I'm gonna look like an idiot and fail. But in the end, it's just my own mindset. And
mm,
so a lot of times these mini experiments that I do gets me out of my comfort zone so much that any little experiment in the business is really not that scary, but also allows my team, more importantly, to take these experiments as well too. We have this like fearless, go fuck up, go break something mentality in our business is I will probably like award you if you do something and break something and spend a lot of money to come up with a solution what we should or shouldn't do, other than not taking risks.
mm,
And I think that like this mentality of allowing myself to understand how do we quickly get to an answer and find out if we like something or something is working, if it matches our personality or of our strategy,
mm.
or ditching it quickly. Same thing with the hiring process, hire slow, fire fast. We have to take these little experiments to understand what matches our brands and personalities along the way. And more importantly, is constantly measure up against that. Run our own internal OKRs with this, whatever you want to call them. Is the fact that if you're doing this for a stint of 6 months, come back and revisit, look at the values along the way and keep aligning with that because interests do change. Maybe they're making you a better person in a certain way and they're developing new values, or they're completely going off what you believe, and that's when you get out. So always have an exit plan with that, but be open to the fact that this could lead to something probably really beneficial for your life or your business.
I love what you said a second ago about go break something. That's pretty cool because if you do break something, you have to fix it. If you're the type of person that it sounds like you would want to work with, and then when you do break something, the fact that you took the initiative and the innovation and the creativity to go out and figure out a way to fix what you broke, it does say a lot about you and sort of it ends up adding value, right? Because the lesson is in the experience itself. So I love that you
Oh,
said
oh
that.
my God. You just gave me like a flashback to my childhood here running. Like, where did I get this from? I remember like every time I crashed my car, I have three sisters, no brothers. Every time my sisters, like when they crashed the car, my dad would fix it. When I did, he's like, here's a toolbox, go to the junkyard, figure it
Mm.
out. And so I hated that, but I'm so grateful for that right now. Because like I think it really builds up character and how to actually quickly piece something together and
Yeah.
be okay with the fact that you can go crash anything you want within reason.
Absolutely. I have a housekeeper who comes here at my house and cleans every other Friday. She comes out and just does like all the big things. And today she brought her he's like 9 years old. She brought her 9 year old son because school's out and whatnot. And this is completely a judgment. But typically when you see those sorts of situations in public, the 9 year old is has a phone in front of him and he's just sitting there like being distracted while his mother's doing something. Because you've seen these scenarios before where the mom brings the kid to
Mhm.
work. She had this kid on his hands and knees scrubbing counters, cleaning floors, doing stuff. And I went up to her and I asked her, I was like, "This is really amazing." And she's like, and she said to me, and I'm paraphrasing, she said, "Well, I thought about leaving him at home, but I knew if he stayed at home, he would do nothing but be on his phone all day long or watching TV. So I was like, let's see if I can't teach him what his mom does, so he can see and learn basically where I am all day long and how I'm caring for him and making money for him. So I wanted him to see it and experience it." And she's like, he just loves being here doing this now. Whenever he gets out of school, it's his favorite thing to do is come clean with his mom. And I just think, dude, talk about different. And she's Hispanic. She's from um Roatan. What's Roatan? Honduras. She's from Honduras, and it's just a different mindset. Honestly, it's just a different mindset, isn't it? And again, not denigrating anybody. Don't be offended, people. But we don't here in the Western world teach our kids these sorts of things anymore, right? Like being involved, like your dad telling you, "Go fix the fucking thing, then, man. Come over here and help me clean for the day today." Like that's just what we're doing, and it's just fascinating to me. And this conversation is sort of going off ramp again, but it's always fascinating to me how different people live different lives and the influences they have and the things that really kind of create their context and their history and their learned behaviors and all that sort of yields itself in who we are, right? When you think about you, and you've told a couple of stories about your childhood, when you think about you as a child and all the things that you're now doing today, and you think about your inspirations or your lessons or your failures or the people, how do you encapsulate all of the pieces of the mosaic that are now creating who Bryce North is today?
Through stories, right? I think it comes down to that. So, like, how am I putting it out there? I think we all want to tell our legacy somehow and put it in some sort of form or fashion. But I think, the way that I'm doing it is, which I can see freely, is now through this company, which I'm pretty excited about because everything else has been, pretty strict and narrow and conforming to other people. I feel like this is my artboard, this company. This allows me to like have a lab to experiment, to put whatever I want out there on test. And I can't remember what famous person said this. Maybe it was Richard Branson. But if you own the media, you control everything. And I think having these relationships, having these moments, and understanding how to actually manipulate that and shift the paradigm online is really powerful. So I'm pretty fortunate and excited at the same time that like now I can kind of take everything I've done, who I am, and put this in a format that allows me to express this and run projects and run experiments and do whatever the hell I want out there, behind a brand that's already edgy that people are probably not gonna judge a little more. So I'm happy the fact that I set a tonality with this brand that things are gonna come out and probably be a little uncomfortable, but expect more. And I think that lowers people's kind of fear or expectations, throughout this process.
It is pretty funny. Whoever said that, I feel like the Rothschilds, somebody who was involved in the Rothschilds said that, who, if you own the media, you own
Meaning,
everything.
don't quote me. Do not quote me on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's been reused and recycled over and over and over. I know there's several people who said it, but it is pretty interesting if you take a look at the shift in popular culture has sort of gone to this idea of micro content, if you will, in terms of, like Netflix is now putting out movies and Apple's putting out movies, and they're not these giant production studios, and those still exist, but the most type of content that's now being consumed is, through social media and YouTube and small videos. You said Alex Hormozy and all these sorts of things. It's always funny how I just find it fascinating how things shift over time, and they'll shift again, and then they'll recycle themselves and whatnot. In terms of how you see the world operating now, and running a business and getting your name out there, do you have some insights on how entrepreneurs and primarily the people listening to the show could best show up in today's marketplace to share their message, share their brand, tell their story? Just can you give me some insights on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, let's go on the side of retail. I mean, let's go on both sides right here and say that, putting yourself out there to begin with is the goal. 101 is that I think in order to connect with people, we got to be a little more fearless and just document. And we tell you hear about documenting all the time, but it really does matter. I think, people are a little more scared of others think. We've talked about that, but I think it's importantly to find those first movers, those evangelists that scream your story and want to share. And that comes from actually having followers of your story. So number one is you should be documenting. Number two, and I hate when I hear this from every single CEO, is no, I don't want to put myself out there, or I don't want to be the face of the brand because the brand needs to stand on its own two legs and needs to, scale and get acquired in a company. You can't get acquired if it's attached to a person. Such bullshit. And and I post a lot about this. My recent LinkedIn post was about this, is the fact you can't hide behind logos. I mean, you have to be that face, the guru, the leader in this space, and dictates where this market is going, and have someone trust in that in order to have what you're doing, your product, your solution, the board you're sitting on, the many projects, other than that, that will offer the solutions to these problems you're putting out there. And so we need to attach this to somebody. When we think Tesla, we think Elon, like him or not. When we think
Mm.
Virgin, we think Richard Branson, Apple, Steve Jobs. And so all these people built successful companies that are running on their own, but tied to their brand and their influence to begin with. So I think that's what a lot of people should be doing. It's just putting themselves out there. But we have a lot of good mediums. Like on the side of retail right now, the gold mine back in the day was Amazon. Now it's TikTok Shop. It's blowing up completely. What you're doing with influencers and other people telling your stories in a micro fashion is absolutely incredible. And I can go on in a tangent of how to make TikTok Shop super successful. I've heard from a lot of creators, but the idea is you have so much power now to other people telling stories that you can get your own story out there in micro formats and fashion by leveraging influencers, other people, and those that actually have an audience in the network. And we forget that. This isn't a promotional product pitch. This is a your story pitch. How many times can you get people promoting you as the product, if you want to see it that way, out there, other than what you're selling? This is such an incredible moment for that. And I think we are paralyzed with the fact of, do we need to promote ourselves in our companies, or how do we utilize other people? And I think we got to take it a step back and build these relationships
Mm.
with our audience by leveraging others.
You are the brand.
You are the brand. Like the one of the best advice I ever got when I was 18 years old, and it still holds today in social media, but it wasn't, with social media. It's like, Bryce, when you turn 40, something amazing happens. You lose half your energy. So the only way to be successful is to lean on your network. I mean, now we have access to a network all over the world. And why not lean on them in order to share your story and get yourself out there and connect?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's in a nutshell why I do the things that I do is just to build relationships with people so that when you, in the process of getting to know them and sharing, I sort of think of like, sorry, I'm backing up. I sort of see everything we do in business very analogous to how we build our personal relationships, our romances, et cetera, right? You become that person's biggest fan and biggest advocate, right? I'm assuming you do. Like if you have a partner and you show up in public, like you want to cheer them on, you want to see them succeed, you want to see them, you want to see and nurture that relationship, right? And so I always say, think of your business as just let's look at it as a romance. Like, how can you and your clients are your romance? How can you build something around your clients so that they become your raving fan in the process of you promoting them and making them a better person? And I do think a lot of people lose sight of that. And I'm not really sure why. I just think it might be just to be sort of a context thing, but it's really refreshing to hear you say that. In terms of who you are now, and I know I'm coming towards the end of my time with you, so thank you for being here again. I really appreciate your time. When you think about you as a leader and how you show up and your philosophies and your beliefs and all the things that sort of drive you, kind of going back to that personality stuff, what drives how you make decisions now?
It's a lot based on, I think, I mean, it's analytical for sure. I have a logical side to me. I want the facts, but I'll go a lot with my gut at the same time too. And even when I make decisions with my team, my whole goal is to empower them to kind of bring things forward and, bring me in when they need advice or guidance or tell me what's not working. But how I make decisions needs to be from experience, needs to be calculated, but they need to have me experience. There has to be an exit plan for us to kind of screw up, but also be a little more of a leap, some sort of fearless movement within that in order for us to try something new.
Mm,
And I think I also think it's exciting at the same time. We don't want to lose kind of hope or direction or excitement in a company because people do get bored. But if a decision you make will actually lead towards you discovering something a little new on a different path that's maybe fun and exciting, do that. But also at the same time, allow you to experiment and just prove another way. I think that's the best way to go. And a lot of that is, like I said, back within the whole team is collaborating and has the same culture, which is one of the hardest things to build, but have the same culture of believing that what we bring together is collectively for experimentation
mm.
and for risk taking.
Thank you for that. How much does intuition play a role in what you do?
I think a lot. I think, but it comes from experience of being calloused. It really does. And I think we can sniff bullshit all the time, like we talked about. But from intuition and everything else, I think you kind of have to trust that.
Mm.
But at the same time, I mean, we're always inherently wrong, more wrong than the next person. And so when my team actually comes and challenges me on these things, and we both think that we're right, I put them in this position for a reason, and I want them to actually challenge me and say what I'm doing is wrong. So I will fully back them up and say, "Go disprove this. Go prove me wrong. Review yourself right. You have my full support. This is not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about you're here, and I empower you to have these decisions." And so I'm not right every single time, and sometimes my gut is super wrong. But I'm glad that I have a team and the culture that I built that allows me to support these experiments or support the fact that I do have a backup plan when things don't go right.
I love that you said that because it is critical to surround yourself with people who not only build you up but support you, but also will hold you accountable and call your bullshit for your bullshit. And I really appreciate that. And speaking of bullshit and sort of having a filter for it and a sniffer for it, I guess how do you determine or how do you define what influence actually is in the marketplace? Since you're teaching people how to become more influential, you're teaching people how to show up more, you're getting them more connected, which gives them the opportunity to influence, right, other people. So what is influence to you, and how do you define sort of how someone can be a good influencer?
I actually built this internal influence media score that we've been working on for years, which allows you to like measure your competitors, your voice personally, the company, what the people in the market are doing, what the industry is doing, and kind of gives you a score of 120. And like I've been geeking out on this so much, I understand that okay, like if you want to get a Forbes feature, you probably need to be between like the 85 and the 100, and 10 mark. And, and so we take a lot of your like domain authority, what we've been doing, and some other like authority metrics under socials to understand where you fit into this. So, what does influence mean? I think it depends on your industry mostly. For us, when we have this score, we use influence and this authority score to understand where you rank in the media, that see how we can upgrade you
Mm.
and where we can kind of get you into. If you want to be featured here and you're only worth here, well, let's get you to the gym, right? Let's get you buff. Let's get you ready. Let's prep you. Let's make sure that you're looking good and strong and you're ready for this and that you're featured everywhere else. Because like the media does not want to bet their reputation that your product or service is good. Many have said this, and so we have to get you ready.
Mm.
So on that side, for us internally, we use a score. For others, are you trying to raise money? Are you trying to get more sales and track clients? Are you trying to increase your close rate? Are you trying to get more bookings? Are you trying to attract better and bigger talent? All these have a different influence type of play in the marketplace and how you're actually perceived. And
Mm.
so, what is influence on this? Depends where you're trying to grow and scale. And I'm going to give you an example here. If you're trying to raise money from an investor, you better show them you're a damn good CEO, that you're not replaceable, that you can run a team. So your
Mm.
influence online needs to be the fact that you are structured, you do have strategy, that you are intelligent around this. That's one side of things. You want great teammates, build a cool culture, show that online. You don't have to choose one. You can have multiple storylines of what you're doing,
Mhm.
but you got to be pretty damn good in knowing, understanding at the same time what influence means for your goals and not just spread it widely out there and say that podcasts, media, PR, social media doesn't work. You just ain't channeled. I think that's the problem for a lot of people. So figure out
Mm.
your platform, figure out your goals, get the right people to work with you on this and stick with it and just put out content and have consistency.
Consistency is a for me when I look at other businesses and I look at other people who are I have people that come to me and say, nobody's really responded to my messages, no one's responded to my, and I'll look at their social media or look at their website. And I'm like, first of all, the last time you actually did any activity on the website was 3 years ago. The last time you posted on social media was 3 months ago, and the last time you added any value was 13 years ago. So if you want people to take notice of you, man, you gotta like start showing up with something that's take notice worthy. It's like you can't just be like, hey, I have all these really cool ideas, but no one's responded. I'm like, motherfucker, when was the last time you actually talked about these cool ideas? I never once see
Exactly.
you say a single thing. I just audited every single thing you've done. There's not a single piece out there that was be like, man, I really want to connect and have a bourbon with that cat. So it's like if you want someone to take note, you've got to start doing something about it. So it's always interesting. In terms of the last part, if I can, just some quick questions before you run about your busy day. Um, I'm fascinated by the idea of leadership. You're 37 years old. You're doing something really quite marvelous, rebellious. You're disrupting. You're adding value to people's lives. What's your take of leadership, first of all? Like, what is leadership to you, and how has that changed since, let's say, you were 25? Like, what's the model evolution, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, leadership to me now is really just empowering other people to have and make decisions and allowing them to be the heroes. And that's my whole goal. And this is interesting to me because I'm the founder of this company. Founder sales do really well. We know this in a startup and a company, but we installed a lot of heat maps actually on our site. And people are actually clicking on my team, my campaign directors, and everyone else but me. And I love that. And that tells me that, maybe they have enough trust or maybe they're just, curious on everyone else's capabilities. But when you empower people and put their stories and their opinions out there, to me, that kind of allows things to flourish, allows you to kind of step back and allows a lot of trust and a foundation on that. And so for me, this is a big thing, knowing that I can remove myself and I have people that actually believe in the culture, will still support it, that are my ride and dies. They'll do no matter what it takes in order to make this thrive when I'm not there, and people that I can trust within that. In the same time, have a respect from everybody else because they are empowered, they are and do have the smarts in order to continue this through. That's how I view leadership these days. Is I remove myself completely from this because it's not about me.
Mm.
What's it like when I was 20? It was all about me. I
Mm.
was all about the vanity speaking gigs, the big podcasts everywhere, and taking everything and feeling the most important person in the room. I still love the stage, but I loved it more because it made me feel important.
Mm.
I stuck on one of my startups for over 6 years when it was a horrible failure. And I did that because I started winning awards. I started actually getting offered to speak everywhere. I felt like I was winning when I wasn't, because for me, I was in a position of influence for something that actually meant nothing. And I think letting that ego go and realizing that I am really nothing and I'm not the most important person in the world. And hell, I'm not even as most successful compared to everybody else. It's kind of pretty cool. In the end, people really just care about themselves. It's the way the world works, right? And we can have compassion for others, but I think in a push comes to shove and everything else, our goal out there as leaders and whoever we are is just to empower other people to make
Mm.
decisions and feel damn important.
I love how it's shifted. I don't think I had my biggest leadership shift. I worked in the corporate world straight out of college. I did that for almost 15 years, and I'm sure there were growth metrics along the way. But my biggest shift, if we want to say I had one, is probably centered around after I got divorced. And
Mm,
up until that point, and it wasn't that the divorce that was the most troublesome to me or the most inspiring to me, depending on how you look at it. It wasn't that. I was sad that I got divorced. I was sad. But it made me realize for the first time in my life that the trajectory I was on and the things that didn't work out, I had a hand in. And I had never taken that perspective before. I was just sort of blamed everyone else. It was this person's fault. It was that driver's fault. It was my ex-wife's fault. It was like always someone else's fault. And I don't really feel like I had that first growth until I got divorced. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm way cooler than this woman. How the hell could she divorce me? And then you had to sort of be like, wait, maybe I'm not so cool after all. Like, what was my role in that space, right? Like, there was obviously, it takes two to tango, right? I was obviously involved in that marriage, and I obviously did something that didn't work or make that have perpetuity. So it was really the first time in my life where I had to step back, develop some introspective self awareness around and be like, fucking A, man, I've made a lot of really not good decisions the last few years of my life. In your sense of the world, was there one moment when you sort of look back, and there's many, I understand, but is there like one defining moment, if you look back the last 10, 15 years of your life, that completely altered these doors that we go through, right? That completely altered the trajectory of where you sort of were to where you are now?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, based on kind of what you said previously, you said something interesting there, realizing that, you are the reason for these failures. Like you're the constant in all these. And being able to recognize what that constant is extremely important. And like that's what gives you a breakthrough. So, I mean, maybe this was your rock bottom moment, maybe not. Maybe it was like an eye-opening moment for you. For me, my rock bottom moment was feeling us on top of the world, moving my business to a new city and losing everything in 12 hours, from teammates to girlfriends to having my bike stolen to my team quitting on me and losing all my money because someone stole my idea and got funding over I did.
Mm-hmm.
All this wrapped up in 12 hours. I had a huge support system. I had, like I said, winning awards, speaking on stage, and all that went away. That moment, I didn't realize that till weeks later, where people wanted to return my calls, and businesses that wanted to work with me were highlighting me. Conferences got canceled, like mini speaking opportunities. And at the point, I felt like, you know what, maybe I'm not that important. And whatever I was doing along the way, people are there for the ride. And when you're on the fall, they just disappear. And this just kind of made me, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right? And like we hear about it all the time now, but it made me really like step back and kind of think and be very grateful that if I was successful in that moment, I'd be a piece of shit today. I know I
Mm-hmm.
would be 100%. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I went to that and it made me a little more humble, it brought me to where I am today to understand how to probably be a better person than me. But that was my pivotal moment of kind of losing all that. What I felt was important to me, what I felt that vanity was important, to actually realize it meant nothing and it means nothing. Now, those relationships do, but that perception of me out there, absolutely not. And that was a killer. It made me follow a dream or something I had in mind that wasn't gonna be successful in order to prove myself for whatever reason. I think especially myself, am definitely a lot more humble because of it.
I appreciate that candor. Thank you for sharing that. In terms of people listening right now, just sort of, if you had one piece of wisdom you could offer them, these are entrepreneurs who are building a business, they're founders like you, and they're listening in and they're in the thick of the mess. Because as you know, you've been involved in this for a while. Running a business is a motherfucker sometimes. Like it's a lonely road. It's a lot of work. You have to be a Swiss Army knife in so many different levels. You have to build relationships. You have to understand your financials. You have to understand your plan. You got to understand your messaging, all these things, right? What would you say to any entrepreneur listening right now that's in the thick of it right now?
Talk to people. And I don't sound as cliche as this, is that I've met so many people traveling that are amazing. Like I've met some pretty successful people. Like second connection from the owner of Notion, the CEO of
Mm,
Notion, and like got some amazing advice to some other really great leaders out there. I think a lot of times because we don't know what we're doing, we second guess ourselves or we make decisions that aren't right. And everyone's going to pull us in different directions. But the people I met outside of my own city by traveling, networking, and all of that is absolutely incredible. In person, when we have these vulnerable moments, whether we're in a sauna and half naked, or whether we're on a boat somewhere and a raft, I think you provide the connections and people that you meet that are willing to help and do anything for you. And like a lot of my successes in my building came from those on the road, that I actually opened up to. And, we're in moments where they gave me a lot of advice. And so if you don't have this opportunity, go to networking events, try to do yourself online. There's many ways to connect, but at least for me, the experimentation and that mindset of being open to talking with people and literally just talking to everyone in a coffee shop or on the street, you'd be shocked that person around the corner was the first investor, true story of your company, because, you asked them how the coffee was.
Yeah.
And so I think, we got to take it one conversation at a time.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Experiment one conversation at a time. In terms of everything else, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Hard to find. Don't Be Little Pitch. Google it. don'tbelittlepitch.com. Find me on LinkedIn. I like to have conversations. You don't want PR. You want PR. You want to talk about how to properly put your image out there. I like geeking out on this. I don't sell. I just like to educate. So if you want to have a conversation, book a call. If you want to hang out, I love it. I do a lot of these every single day, so you can find me there.
Bryce, you're a sharp man. I appreciate your insights. Before you go, I want to take you through a speed round. It's my hot seat. It's just questions, quick answers, quick questions, quick answers. Don't overthink them. What's one hill that you will always die on?
One hill I always die on. Oh my God, I gotta think about this one. One hill I will always die on is my transparency and direct honesty.
What's one thing every founder should stop doing right now?
Watching social media.
Biggest misconception about Bryce North?
That I'm a huge asshole. I get that a few times when people meet me, I think all the time, but I think once you have a conversation, things change.
Don't be a little pitch.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest DM you've ever received?
I had this happen last week that I don't want to get too much trouble here, but I am inherent, like it was one of those print scams. I got a bunch of money and inherit this, and I want to take over the government by giving money to the people and making the people hate the government, and I need PR to support this. Will you join my mission? And I'm going to give millions of dollars to people to join my initiative. I can't show my face to who I am, but this is what I'm doing. I took that call, and it was hilarious as that message sound.
Anyway, Bryce, man, good conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that you've got a bazillion things going on, and I just appreciate you being here and sharing your insights. It was a great conversation with you, brother.
Yeah, man, I really enjoyed it, and you asked some really good questions, and I think we got pretty deep in some stuff, but otherwise, really appreciate it, and I appreciate you.
Wow. As always, I get the coolest people on these shows. What stood out to me about Bryce's story is his candor, his transparency, his ability to take a moment and tell a story around it, but not sound like he's telling a story about it, and how sharp and witty he was and how quickly he was able to answer every question I threw at him. So really cool reminder that voice without vision is just noise. And when you know who you are and who you are not, you're not afraid to pitch from that place. So by doing that, you don't just build a brand, you're building gravity, and that's how you grow a business. So, Bryce, man, I appreciate you showing up. If this conversation lit something in you, if you're ready to finally own your own voice and stop dancing around your message, I'd love to chat with you. That's exactly what I do with the brand discovery process for all of my clients. It's part therapy, it's part truth serum. It's where clarity begins with your brand and your messaging. And I'd love to chat with you and help you out with that. Until next time, I know you have choices when it comes to podcasts, literally millions of them. Thank you for spending the last hour with me and Bryce, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for tuning in to the Branding Laboratory. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Connect with us on social media for more branding tips and insights. And remember, your story matters. Until next time, keep building and sharing your unique brand story. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Branding Laboratory. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Connect with us on social media for more branding tips and insights. And remember, your story matters. Until next time, keep building and sharing your unique brand story. I'll see you soon.